This is the story of Knull. Knull is the god of symbiotes. He is the lord of symbiotes. Today, all the symbiotes we know are part of Knull. Knull's story is billions of years old, so old that it is older than Big Bang. At that time, there was nothing in space except for the dark darkness, and Knull used to live in that dark darkness, and Knull was the owner of this whole empty kingdom. But suddenly, one day, he saw a light called the light of creation. And as soon as the light went off, he saw some gods who called themselves celestials. Celestials came here to start life. They came here to create the universe in this empty place. But Knull feels that they have come to take over his kingdom. That is why Knull tries to stop them and asks them to leave. But celestials call this place space and say that this place is empty, and the empty place needs to be filled. And this is the work of us gods. Hearing this, Knull says that this kingdom is not empty. This is my world, and my shadow lives with me in my world. And my shadow is not a thing, my shadow is also alive. And apart from this empty place is not empty, and I am also in silence. But celestials did not listen to Knull. And on which, Knull gets angry and puts his hand into his shadow. And from inside his shadow, a sword is drawn. This sword, which was made from the shadow of the celestial, and after it, Knull immediately cuts off the head of a celestial. And as soon as people see this, other celestials flee with fear. Knull makes the head of the celestial into a flame. And in that flame, he breaks his sword, breaks it into pieces, and turns his sword into a better one. But the heat of that fire and the loud sound of the hammer start scaring the sword made of the shadow of the tap. And this is the reason why symbiotes are also afraid of fire and loud sounds. Because the black thing on this sword is called symbiote. After this, the tap prepares its sword and decides that it will kill all the gods with this sword. And it will erase everything that those gods have created. Then it starts killing all the gods with its sword. The sword keeps Knull safe by making an armor. Then Knull starts killing all the gods one by one, but once it faces a very powerful god. And the tap fights with that god in a very dangerous way. And while fighting, the two of them fall on an unknown planet. This was a planet where people used to trust the gods, but their gods didn't pay any attention to them at all. Because of this, the people there were dying of hunger and thirst. But even after this, they used to trust the gods. But there was one of them who was different from all of them, whose trust had been taken away from the gods. And that was Gore. Gore's life was very painful. He was dying of hunger and thirst. Gore's mother was eaten by a wild animal. His wife and child were killed in an earthquake, and he was taken out of his tribe by his own people. Gore thought that all of this was happening because of the gods. Because their gods didn't pay any attention to them, Gore sees Knull fighting with a god. And God asks Gore for help, but Gore becomes furious, and he says to God, "You are in such a bad situation because of the gods. How did you even think that I would help you?" And then a small piece of the symbiote comes into Gore's hands, and Gore kills God with that piece. After that, Gore gets the symbiotic powers of that symbiote. After that, he becomes Gore the God Butcher, and this Gore the God Butcher is the same character, who has appeared as the main villain in Thor's fourth film, Thor Love and Thunder. This character is so powerful that to defeat him, Thor's 3 different timeline versions had to come together. After that, Thor was able to defeat him. On the other side, Knull was badly injured after this fight. That's why he was healing himself on an unknown planet for many years. And in the meantime, he learned that his shadow can bond with other living things. And through that bond, Knull can control them, he can take away their powers. He can use them, he can see what they are seeing. He can feel what they are feeling, and after knowing this, Knull does the same. He connects his shadow with other living things. After that, they come under the control of Knull, and they connect with Knull, and Knull becomes the hive mind of all of them. And he's called God of the Symbiotes Knull. And after that, Knull doesn't have to go anywhere or do anything. He spreads all of those symbiotes in the entire galaxy and universe, and all these symbiotes connected to Knull go to different places and start destroying. And one of these dragon symbiotes comes to Earth and starts destroying everything. But then a god comes to stop that dragon symbiote. The god of thunder, Thor, defeats that dragon symbiote with his thunder and attacks it with a powerful lightning. The attack is so powerful that even Knull feels its shock. And because of this shock, Knull's connection breaks with all the symbiotes. And as soon as the connection breaks, all those symbiotes start bonding with the people around them. And because of bonding with humans, humanity and goodness comes into those symbiotes. After that, all those symbiotes understand that their god Knull is a devil. And they all become against Knull. They all together betray against Knull. And all those symbiotes together surround Knull from all sides to capture Knull. And they make a round cage and capture Knull in the middle of it. And this is called Planet Clincher. This means that Clincher is not a planet, but a prison, in which millions of symbiotes have together captured Knull. So this was the complete origin of Knull. Now, after knowing its origin, if we look at Knull's powers and abilities, so it has some basic powers. Superhuman strength, shape-shifting, and regenerative healing factor. That is, Knull holds so much strength that it can even kill celestial gods. It can even attack a very powerful energy beam. It can change its shape as it pleases. And even if it gets injured, it can heal it completely. Knull has two big dragon-like wings. With their help, it can fly. It can live in space without eating, drinking, or sleeping. Moreover, Knull is near immortal. That is, it is alive from billions of years. And it can stay alive for billions of years. So that's it for today's video.